So we're going to spend some time this morning talking about the college search process in general, but then we specifically want to provide you guys with some tools, a different lens to look at the college search process because it can be overwhelming. Certainly under the best of circumstances, but definitely it is the case. I think the past 2 years in particular. So hopefully this provides you guys a little bit of structure here. So I would imagine that all of your energy up until this point with regard to the college search process has been focused on getting yourself into college. You think about it, you're taking the right classes because you got to get in. You got to get the right grades because you've got to get in. You have to have the right extracurricular activities because you've got to get in. So because you joined me this morning, what I want to do is sprinkle some insider information along the way here, beginning with the fact that you are going to get into a college. In fact, I'll guarantee it. I won't guarantee you get into Bridgewater. We'll talk about the admissions process a little bit later, but you are going to get in somewhere, at least one of two different options, right? So Massachusetts community colleges here have open enrollment. So you get a GED, you graduate from high school, you're automatically enrolled to your local community college, with the exception of some particular high competitive programs. Look into those. The other option is that there's an increasing number of private, less selected colleges and universities. They don't advertise themselves as such, but they'll admit anyone who enrolls. They'll admit anyone who applies, and they'll enroll anyone who will apply. So you're going to get in somewhere. Now, the question isn't whether you're going to get in. What I encourage you to think about is where do you want to go? Because it might not be one of those two options that I just cited. And you're going to want to be able to sift through the rest of the options in some orderly fashion. So a little self-disclosure, I'm the dad of 3 teenagers, but when my kids were first born, my wife and I read to them every night until they were able to read on their own, each of the 3 kids. So I have like a ton of children's books stuck in my head. It's haunting, in fact, but sometimes when I contemplate questions like, where do you want to go? Children's books will pop into my head. And maybe this will ring a bell with you. One children's book that comes to mind might be the Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, which is a great book. If you haven't read it, it's usually a graduation gift, but it's not really a college search book. It doesn't really give us that same kind of structure. Instead, I encourage you to think about another familiar children's book, which is Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, right? So Goldilocks goes through her adventure. This bed's too small. This one's too big. This one's just right. Porridge is too hot, all this other stuff. So what we're going to do is look at criteria like what you see on the screen, but I'm going to try to walk you through the Goldilocks approach and map out the range of options within each of these set of criteria for you. So we'll have some fun with this. First is location. And as in real estate, it's also very important to the college search process. And by location, I mean, how far from home do you want the school to be? And you got 3 options here using the Goldilocks approach. First is, baby phase, right? Close to home. That's one option for folks where it keeps you familiar, warm, and safe and happy, right? So if you want to go to school close to home, fortunately in the Boston area, we have a ton of options, right? So that's option 1. Second approach might be maybe a little more adventurous. You want to go to another part of the state. Maybe you want to go to another state entirely. Well, that's also an option for you. And then the third option is for students who want to get as far away from home as humanly possible. And you can do that as well. You can go cross country. You can go to another country to get your college education. So there's your options: close to home, a little far away, or as far away as possible. So to plot where Bridgewater is as an example, you can see here that we are about 40 minutes south of Boston. We like to say that we are accessible to students both near and far because we're right off a major highway, but we also have a T-stop here on campus, which we'll talk a little bit about later. So setting is things like, do you want to be in an urban campus? If you like the hustle and bustle, big buildings, lots of people, or if you currently reside in the greater Boston area, you might be more comfortable in an urban setting for your campus. The other extreme, of course, is rural. Now, you may assume that Bridgewater is a rural setting. We do have a couple of cows, but there's a whole other range of rural. There's like Iowa rural, right? If you like big skies, crickets at night, you might be interested in more of a rural setting for your campus. And then there's the suburban setting, which in fact is where Bridgewater is located. So again, to give you a sense of Bridgewater, We have a beautiful campus located in downtown Bridgewater. We've done almost $500 million capital improvements. You can see it looks like a traditional college campus. You got the cupola here, you got fall foliage and all that business. It's certainly a safe setting. Bridgewater, we're actually recently ranked the 4th safest campus in the entire country. And we're really accessible to Boston, as I promised. We have our own T-stop here on campus. The Old Colony commuter rail comes right through the heart of our campus. And so you can be in downtown Boston in about 45 minutes. So suburban setting, but ready access to Boston. Size. Size might be an obvious set of criteria based on our Goldilocks approach. You've got small, medium, and freakishly large. It doesn't fit on my slide. So to give you a sense, Bridgewater is a medium-sized university. Small universities can actually number a few hundred students or 1,000 or so. Large universities, large for New England seems to be places like UMass Amherst or University of Connecticut, where you're looking at about 25,000 students. Large on a national scale can actually run upwards of 50 to 60,000 students at places like Arizona State or Central Florida University. So Bridgewater, mid-sized university, we have 11,000 total undergraduate, total students, rather, 8,000 full-time undergraduate students. So we're the largest state university of Massachusetts, comparing us to places like Salem and Framingham and so forth, separate from the UMass system. Although we are bigger than UMass Dartmouth, so definitely mid-sized. Lots of advantages to going to a mid-sized school, including 38 different majors, 109 different areas of study. So a lot of academic options for students at mid-sized and larger universities. Smaller size schools may be more of a personal field. So there's trade-offs depending on which direction you want to go on this set of criteria. And another advantage in terms of the larger schools is that they have more alumni, people who graduate from that school, who are out in the workforce, who could be connections in a network for you. At Bridgewater, we've got about 60,000 living alumni in all 50 states and countries around the world. Another criteria for you to consider, which might not be familiar to you, is what we call mission classification, okay? So I'll give you some examples here as we talk our way through it. So there's 3 different types of mission classifications that are available here in Massachusetts, both public and private universities. So there are research universities, there are teaching universities, and then there are specialty campuses, right? So at a research university, the faculty are evaluated based on their production of new and original research. So if you've ever heard the phrase publish or perish, they're talking about professors at a research university. They, of course, also teach, but this is sort of secondary. And at research universities, you may encounter teaching assistants, visiting lecturers, and so forth. Teaching universities, they don't just produce teachers, which in Bridgewater's case, we do, but teaching universities, the focus is on actually teaching students who are working on the bachelor's degrees. That's how our faculty are evaluated, based on their teaching evaluations. So the students are essentially the boss in this case. And then specialty universities, they have a teaching focus, but it's sometimes very specific types of majors. So let me give you some examples here on the screen based on the public higher education system here in Massachusetts. So research universities here in Massachusetts, those are the UMass campuses, University of Massachusetts campuses, including UMass Boston, Dartmouth, Lowell, and our flagship campus, UMass Amherst. Teaching universities are the state universities. So those are places like Westfield, Worcester, Fitchburg, Framingham, Salem, and Bridgewater. Now, in Massachusetts, we have 3 specialty campuses. We have the Mass College of Liberal Arts up in North Adams. We have Mass College of Art and Design in downtown Boston. And finally, Mass Maritime Academy in Buzzards Bay. So each of those campuses, whether it's art or liberal arts or anything related to the maritime industry, those are their specialties. The emphasis is on teaching, but teaching of very specific skill sets. So again, Bridgewater is a teaching university, and that means that 89% of our professors are tenure or tenure track, meaning that they're either in positions here for their career or they aspire to be in positions where they work here for their entire careers. At teaching university, they usually try to keep the student to faculty ratio small. At Bridgewater, it's 18:1, and we try to keep our class size as small as well. So the average class size at Bridgewater in any case is about 22, which is typical for a teaching university. And we cap our class sizes at no more than 40. So at a teaching university, you're less likely to have large auditorium-sized classrooms with several hundred students and teaching assistants and that sort of thing. So it's usually more of an emphasis on getting real live professors in the classroom with students working directly. All right. So college is different from high school in that not all of the learning in college occurs in the confines of a classroom. There's a lot that happens outside of the classroom. And what I want to share with you guys, there's 3 examples here that you should all be considering as part of your college search process and part of your college career plan, right? So I'm talking specifically about things like study abroad, undergraduate research, and internships. Now, these might seem like extras or things that other students do, but I do encourage every student in this presentation to consider participating in at least one, if not more, of these programs. They're what they call high impact practices, right? So students who do participate in these tend to stay in college and they tend to graduate at a higher rate. But more importantly, it also distinguishes you when you go out into the workforce. You see, there are over 100 colleges and universities here in Massachusetts alone. So you can imagine collectively, we graduate tens of thousands of new college graduates every year. So in many cases, if you want to be competitive when you graduate looking for a job, you got to have something more than just a college degree to distinguish yourself, which isn't to say that earning a college degree is a huge accomplishment. It is, absolutely. But it's experience in these types of programs that are really going to make your resume stand out when you go looking for that first job. So everyone should do programs like this. I'll explain them real quickly. Study abroad. It's literally going to another country as part of your education. In many institutions, the gateway activity is what we call a study tour. So it's a course that has a travel component built into it. So let's say an art class in Japanese art, where you literally fly to Japan for about a week or 2 with your professor and your classmates, visit Japanese museums, meet with Japanese artists, work on your own projects using the techniques that you're learning, fly back stateside, earn 3 credits. And it's pretty fun. If you get the travel bug, you can spend an entire semester in a foreign country, the summer in a foreign country. And at Bridgewater, in any case, you can do your student teaching in 5 different countries. So at Bridgewater, we've got 75 study abroad programs in 35 different countries, and we provide scholarship money for students to be able to access these opportunities. Undergraduate research may not be a familiar concept to you. It's done at colleges and universities around the country. And it's when you, working on your bachelor's degree, initiate an original independent research project and you recruit a faculty mentor to help. And typically it's defined in 3 ways at other institutions. It's just for upperclassmen, exclusively for honor students, and typically for students in the natural sciences, so chemistry, biology, that kind of stuff. Bridgewater does it differently in all 3 ways. So it's not just for upperclassmen. We actually have undergraduate research built into 1st and 2nd year courses, and anyone can sign up for those classes. You don't have to be an honors student. Now, you can take your undergraduate research project and turn it into an honors thesis. For those students, we have 100% success rate placing them in graduate schools. And it's not just for students in the natural sciences. We offer grant funding for our students to do undergraduate research, and we have recipients from every department on campus. This is a very popular program at Bridgewater. In fact, we have upwards of 1,700 students doing undergraduate research every year here. And it's a very good program. Last year, Bridgewater State University was ranked the #1 undergraduate research program in the entire country for teaching universities. So definitely have this on your radar, especially if graduate school is in your future plans. Last but not least is internships. Internships is literally getting real world experience as part of your education in the workplace, right? So internships are critical, especially for building a resume before you go out into the job market. And it's very popular here at Bridgewater in any case. Prior to the pandemic, 40% of Bridgewater students interned or had some sort of practicum experience before they graduated. And again, we offer funding for our students to be able to do what might be otherwise unpaid internships. So we're willing to invest in allowing our students to get these opportunities. So all 3 of these options should be on the table for you when you're looking for colleges and when you're putting together your plan of what you want to do before you graduate from college. So other aspects of the college search process that you should consider: the makeup of the student body. And the 3 options here. So you have some specialty institutions, perhaps they specialize all women's college, so it's gender specific. There are also historically Black colleges and universities around the country. Schools with these sorts of traits give you a pretty good indication of what the student body is going to look like should you decide to enroll. There are also colleges and universities that have a religious affiliation. none of which require that you subscribe to that particular religion, but it does give you a sense of where the curriculum might be, or in some cases, who's teaching the courses, but the mission and the values of the institution. So a couple of examples of religious affiliated institutions: Boston College, affiliated with the Catholic Church and the Jesuit denomination specifically, and also Brandeis University is related to Judaism. So there are countless examples around the country. Those are just two local ones. Again, kind of gives you a little bit of a sense of the student body, not a requirement, but some rough indication. And then there's the rest of us colleges and universities in the country that really don't have a distinction per se, although if you are going to attend a public university, chances are the students attending that university are going to be from that particular state. So the student body here at Bridgewater State represents Massachusetts at large, which I think is, again, pretty typical of what you might find at a public university. So a couple of statistics to give you a sense of how our student body is composed. So 52% of our students are the first in their family to ever go off to college. 34% of our students come from family reported incomes below 50,000. On the other end of that scale is 30% come from family incomes above 100,000. And that final third's in the middle. So we have the full socioeconomic range here at Bridgewater State, which again is pretty typical for a public. 26% of our undergraduate students are students of color, and that number continues to climb annually here, as I would imagine it does throughout Massachusetts as the demographics in the state are changing. 65% of our students work full or part-time to pay their way through school. So that's not pizza and beer money, that's tuition and fee money. So again, pretty typical for public university in that our students come to campus with a really good work ethic, and employers love that aspect of our students once they graduate. And then finally, 50% of our new students every year here at Bridgewater are transfer students, which I know seems strange, right? I mean, assuming that you guys, of course, are in high school, why would I share a statistic like this? Well, I do it for a couple of reasons. One is, most importantly probably, is that some of you are going to listen to this presentation, you're going to learn a little bit about Bridgewater, and you'll think, cool place, but not for me, which is fine. We're not going to be all things to all people. We don't want to be. And we might not be a good fit for you now. We might be a good fit for you later, in which case you can always transfer to Bridgewater. We're also here for any graduate degree programs that you might be interested in that we have offered here as well. So student life. How do you want to engage with the campus, either inside or outside of the classroom, right? So three options here. One, online. Pretty sure we're all tired of that by now. But it's certainly an option. There are some colleges and universities that are exclusively online, others that are going to have a hybrid approach, at least for the coming year, and maybe offering more online classes going forward. Second way that you can be involved with student life is as a commuter. It's not living on campus, but living at home or in an apartment and driving in for your classes and for other student activities. And then the third option is the traditional living on campus in a residence hall kind of an experience. So all three are on the table for you as you do your college search process. And so be thinking about how it is you want to engage with student life. At Bridgewater, we have student life for all student lifestyles. And I can say that with confidence because it's actually a 60-40 split between commuting students and those who live on campus, right? So the majority of our students do commute in from the area. Not necessarily from home. There are a ton of students who also have apartments in the area with friends. We actually call those res-commuters. But if you want to live on campus here at Bridgewater, we have 3,300 students living on campus in our 11 residence halls. We actually have more students living on our campus than any of the other state universities in Massachusetts. So there's a critical mass of students here, even though it's only 40% of our students. But regardless of whether you live on campus or commute, you still have full and unfettered access to all the opportunities here on this campus. So if you do commute, you're still the majority of students. So we want to make sure that we're accessible for you folks. We have 90 student clubs and organizations, 18 of which are specifically focused on diversity and cultural awareness. And if you're interested in athletics, it can be a huge driving force for a lot of students who are thinking about their college search process. We're Division III, NCAA Division III. That's, you see here on the screen, our URL to athletics, it's bsubears.com. Whether you're interested in Bridgewater or somewhere else, if you think you want to be a student athlete, go online, find the coach's name and email address, and reach out to them. Even at Division III, we still do recruiting, but reach out, get on the coach's radar, get involved in that recruiting process. It's usually separate from admissions, but it's important that you do that sooner rather than later. And then at Bridgewater, we have Greek life, fraternities and sororities. We got about a dozen. Don't get too excited. It's not like what you see in the movies. We don't have fraternity houses and sorority houses and those sorts of things. But these organizations are very involved in community service and also the social scene here. So that might be part of your college search criteria. Another factor that you want to take into consideration is campus culture, right? And you can only really get a full sense of this of visiting the campus and seeing it for yourself, because students go to college for a whole host of motivations. They sort of get a vibe for those motivations when you visit campus. For some students, they want to go to college because they want to find themselves and broaden their horizons, enrich their minds. And you could do that. Some students go off to college because they want to get a credential, get a better job, more money. That's possible too, and that might be the campus culture and the feel of the place. Some students want to go to college because they want to have a good time, right? And that's absolutely possible at college. It's not sustainable, it's not advisable, but if that's your motivation, there are certainly party schools out there. And some students go to college because they have no idea why, because we're just always told them they want to go to college, they have to go to college, so off to college they go. And that's generally not a college campus culture, but that might be some students' motivations that you kind of see come through, at least initially. So to give you a sense of Bridgewater students are what I call generally other regarding. And by that, I mean they care about other people. It's the vibe that you get when you're here. I like to think that we set the tone right from the jump with our motto, which is not to be ministered unto, but to minister, which is a line from the Bible. I'm not a theologian, so I don't attempt to break it down in those terms. I'm a political scientist by training, so I read that to mean to serve, not to be served. And to serve is certainly what our students are motivated to do. When you consider 3 of our 4 most popular majors track students into what I call the helping professions. I'll list them here for you now. It's education, psychology, and criminal justice. And that doesn't begin to include the countless students in our School of Social Work or who go into public service from political science or any of our other majors. But when you have the vast majority of your students who are making sacrifices to earn degrees because they want to help other people for a living, it absolutely sets the tone in the culture for a campus. And you see it in a whole host of ways here at Bridgewater, not least of which is that we hold doors open for people. I know it seems weird that I would say that in a day and age where nobody wants to grab a door handle without a rubber glove on, but under normal circumstances, it's what we do. And it's not just our students either. It's our faculty, it's our staff. We're literally a campus of people who care who's coming through the door behind us. I've been on this campus for 15 years, and I have to tell you, it makes for a great place to be. So let's talk a bit about major, right? May seem strange that I'm including major in the back end of a presentation about college search criteria, right? When so many students have their college search process driven by what they want to study. Don't get me wrong. If you know what it is you want to study, you want to do it the rest of your life, kudos to you. Chase that down, do it. You'll probably be great. But if you're not quite sure what you want to do with the rest of your life, at 17, 18 years old, I get that too. And you're not alone, right? So let's share some statistics here for you in terms of major anxiety. So to put in perspective for you, 30% of all US freshmen enter college undecided or still deciding on their major, right? So you're not alone. And in fact, here at Bridgewater, 16% of our incoming students are still deciding on a major. And it's about half the national average, but still, if undecided was its own major for incoming students, it would be the most popular major here for incoming students, okay? So you wouldn't be alone in either case. If you know what you want to do for the rest of your life, that's great. Just keep in mind that 50% of all college students in the US change their major once, twice, or as many as 3 times. And again, here at Bridgewater, it's about 40%. So it's below the national average, but still significant. Reason being is you're going to get exposed to things that you didn't even know existed, right? Anthropology, art history, photonics and optical engineering. You're going to spark your interest in ways that you might not have imagined. So leave yourself open to that possibility. Now, if you're coming in still deciding on a major, don't feel like you're wasting your time or you're wasting your credits, okay? So in most cases, to earn a 4-year bachelor's degree, you need to earn 120 credits minimum to graduate. And in most places, that amount can be broken up into thirds. So imagine yourself with 3 buckets here. There's a common core, there are electives, and there are majors. So the common core, they're like classes everybody has to take. You have some flexibility as to what you choose, but you're going to have to take English and math, science, and social studies, that kind of stuff, right? So that accounts for about a third of your credits. If you're coming in undecided, well, you can take classes like that. It allows you to sample different departments, right? But you're still earning credits for just getting your degree on time. You can venture out outside of the Common Core, try some other departments that might not be included in that. And that's fine too, because those courses still count towards your electives. It's just fun stuff you've always wanted to take, right? Things you're interested in. It makes you a more well-rounded person. And then provided that you are able to declare a major before the end of your sophomore year, that still gives you 2 years, half of your college experience to collect a third of your necessary credits, which are specific to your major. So don't freak out if you don't know what it is you want to study, and leave yourself the flexibility to pursue something that you might not have known existed once you enrolled. So don't be afraid to change your major either. You can still get out in 4 years, no worries, okay? So let's put major into perspective here and share with you a quote from Albert Einstein, which says that the value of a college education is not the learning of many facts, but the training of the mind to think. Now, this is a profound quote for me. I was the first in my family to ever go off to college. And so my perspective is I go to college to get a degree, to get a better job, to make more money. And what I found was that I got, again, exposed to things I didn't know existed, but, it allowed me, it taught me how to think more than anything else, to problem solve. Because, let's think about it. You guys have a 50, 60-year career ahead of you. Some of you guys are going to do jobs in ways that we can't imagine, okay? And others of you are going to do jobs we can't even conceive of today. I'll use an example, education, right? So when I was in high school, we didn't have computer terminals, whiteboards, or any of that stuff. We had chalkboard erasers and teaching tools like that. And so if you think about how much education has changed in my lifetime, I'm not that old. You can just imagine what education or any profession is going to be like over the course of the next 50 to 60 years. So it's not learning many facts or techniques, it's training the mind to think so that you can deal with whatever it is that life throws at you. And here's another little insider secret. You can train your mind to think in any major that's offered. Bridgewater, again, 38 different majors, 109 different areas of study. Major is important in that it's hopefully something that's interesting enough to you. You're going to want to get out of bed on a cold and frosty morning and walk across campus because you're interested in hearing what the professor has to teach that day. That's where a major is important. And don't get me wrong, you can be a nurse and you're going to stick an IV in my arm. I want you to have a nursing degree. Or you're going to build my building. I want you to be an engineer. But in many other cases, it doesn't much matter past your first job what it was that you majored in. The next employer is going to ask you, what have you done lately? It's the ability to think that's going to allow you to evolve and change with the workplace and your chosen profession. So let's talk about types of application processes that exist here. Again, going back to the Goldilocks approach here, we've got three. I'll explain them here quickly for you. There's early decision, there's early action, and there's rolling admission. So early decision is when you apply early, and if you get in early, you have to go to that school. So use these very carefully. You only want to do these early decisions with places that might be your number one choice and that you're reasonably confident that should you be offered admission there, that the financial aid and everything's going to line up and you're going to be able to go. We at Bridgewater do not do early decision, usually more selected schools, but definitely talk with your counselors at summer search and at high school to see whether this is a good fit for you. Early action, on the other hand, is you apply early, you get to know early, and then you don't have to make a decision until May 1st, right? So it just gets you the information that's much sooner. You're in the driver's seat, you're not obligated. My advice generally for students is to apply early action everywhere. I mean, there's no harm in it, right? You just get to know that much sooner. And then rolling admission means that, you apply and hopefully sometime soon after you apply, you're going to find out whether you're in or you're not in. And those application processes and deadlines extend out into the springtime in many cases, or even the summer in some other cases. So there's a lot more flexibility in the rolling admissions process. And again, you get to know you're not obligated to go. You can make your decision, excuse me, May 1st, or even in some cases after May 1st. So hopefully that kind of gives you a sense of the three options there for how to apply. So let's talk quickly about what it takes to get into Bridgewater or to any state university, at least here in Massachusetts, because we all use the same standards endorsed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And this is going to give you a rough sense of how schools might evaluate applicants. But again, you're going to want to follow up with specific campuses where you're going to apply. So most important document that you send to us is just going to be your high school transcript. And the first thing that we're going to do is recalculate your high school grade point average. So it's going to be similar in the sense that it's a 4.0 scale. So 4 is an A, 3 is a B, 2 is a C. You get the idea. But at least with regard to public universities here in Massachusetts, it's going to be different in two important ways. One is that we're using just your college prep classes when we recalculate the GPA. So no gym, no health class, no wood shop, that kind of stuff. So in some cases, it might be a little lower than what's on your high school transcript. But at the same time, we use a weighted GPA. So if you take an honors class, that gets weighted half grade level higher. If you take AP, International Baccalaureate, or dual enrollment, those courses get weighted a full grade level higher. So if you get an A in an AP, you're going to get a 5 on a 4.0 scale. Got it? So we can reward you for taking more challenging curriculum. After having done all of that, at Bridgewater, we're test optional. So we can literally admit you based on the strength of your high school GPA. So what's the threshold to get into a state university here in Massachusetts? There you have it, 3.0. If you get a B, you're good to go. And again, in Bridgewater, we're test optional. It means you don't even have to send us test scores. We're admitting you. Now, if you're going to apply to other state universities, you're going to want to follow up with them specifically because they may have programs that are a little more competitive that will have a higher minimum. So programs like nursing or engineering or something like that. But at Bridgewater, we admit to the university, assuming that once you get in, you're good enough to get out with any of our degrees. So that's how we roll. Now, if you're below the 3.0, you should still absolutely apply because at least, again, at the state universities, then we can use the sliding scale, which you see on your screen here, right? So what you see in the far left is a range of 6 different ranges of GPAs, starting from a 2.99 down to a 2.0. So you find where your GPA is and then you slide to the right on the sliding scale where you see the corresponding required minimum standardized test score. We can accept either the ACT or the SAT. So if you meet or exceed that number, you're in. You meet the standards. That's great, right? Now, if you're still not fitting on the sliding scale, don't freak out. You should still absolutely apply because that's when we're going to start to dig in and read things like your personal essay, your letters of recommendation, and your list of extracurricular activities. So these elements are your opportunity to let us know whatever it is that's going on in your life that's keeping you from being as successful as you think you can be should you be offered admission at that college or university. And extracurricular activities, I should say, yes, there are sports and clubs and community service, but let's be honest, not everybody can afford to do those things in terms of time or dollars, right? So use this opportunity to let us know, do you have to hustle home to take care of younger siblings or sick parents or elderly grandparents, especially with the pandemic, right? Do you have to work a part-time job to pay bills? So, show us who you are outside the classroom, work ethic, overcoming adversity, all those elements are things that can come through in a personal essay or a letter of recommendation, list of extracurricular activities. My final note on this slide, however, is in terms of the admissions process, if a college or university offers the opportunity to do an interview, absolutely do it. Why wouldn't you? It's another opportunity for us to get to know you beyond the 2 dimensions of a GPA and an SAT. And it's even better than a personal essay because it's more interactive and you can let yourself shine through a little more authentically. So we just started offering interviews here at Bridgewater last year. And I can tell you in all honesty, we have literally admitted students, who were sort of on the bubble, could have gone either way, but they interviewed and they showed us their best selves and it really did make the difference. So I encourage you to do that again, whether you're applying to Bridgewater or anywhere else. So this is the process that state universities use should you apply. Everyone should apply to at least one or more public institutions here in Massachusetts as part of your college search, whether it's the community college level, state university level, or the UMass system. And this gives you some insight as to how we're going to evaluate. Cost should also be a consideration for students when you are doing your college search. You're going to want to have a range of places where you're reasonably sure you can afford or sort of sure you can afford depending on financial aid, and some places that might be a stretch. for you financially, and I'll explain that in a minute. And to give you a sense of scale here, so commuting to Bridgewater State University here, it's a little more affordable in that you pay tuition and fees. And for Bridgewater, in any case, that comes out to about $10,500 a year. Community college is about half of that. So community college might be anywhere from $5,000 to $6,000 a year. So that might be in the more affordable category. Living on campus at Bridgewater, you're going to pay tuition and fees as well as room and board. So that'll bump the sticker price up to about $23,500 a year. Sticker price, it's before financial aid, which is still a lot of money, but seemingly more affordable than the average cost for private college or university, in which case you're looking at a sticker price ranging from like $40,000 to about $75,000 a year. So I'm saying sticker price because, again, this is before financial aid. And what you'll find is that a lot of more expensive private institutions are going to do what they call tuition discounting. So if you apply for financial aid, you may find that you're being asked to pay 50% of the sticker price or even less. If you're applying to more selective institutions that have large financial endowments, places like Boston College, MIT, Harvard, they can meet 100% of unmet need, in which case you and your family will probably have to pay very little in terms of loans because you'll be getting grants and scholarships to help make up that difference. So don't let the sticker price drive your decision of whether you apply or don't apply. Just make sure that you're applying to a range of schools at different price points in case the financial aid thing doesn't pan out the way that you had anticipated, that you're still going to have options at the end of the process. So as we wind down, I'd like to share this cartoon. Imagine it's a father and a son talking about the college search process, and the son says, the College of Maine has better curriculum, but the College of New York has better pizza. This is meant to be funny. I'm always amazed at how students make the final college choice. I've talked to students who are like, oh yeah, no, I liked that campus, but I went for a tour and it rained that day. Really? Because it rains like everywhere except Arizona State University. Like, don't let the little things really get you hung up. So, what I want to do on this slide is review some of the criteria that we discussed in our presentation, things where you might want to put more of your focus, especially now that you know the range of options we have. So we talked about location, close to home, a little further away, or as far away as possible, right? Setting, urban, suburban, rural. Size, small, medium, large, right? Mission classification. So do you want a research university, a teaching university, or a specialty campus? Experiential learning, the importance of doing things like study abroad or undergraduate research, internships, practicum type stuff, things like that. Student body. So you want a sort of specialty school, you want a religious affiliated campus, or a state university that has a student body that's similar to the state where it's located. Student body is a concern. Student life. Do you want to do classes online? Do you want to commute? Do you want to live on campus? And what sort of activities are available on campus that are going to keep you engaged and stimulated and allow you to grow outside of the classroom? And campus culture. Is it a friendly place? Is it sort of like a formal place? Is it a party school? All elements that contribute to a campus culture. And major. Do you know what you want to do with the rest of your life? Great. If not, no problem either. You can figure it out. College is a great place to do that. And then finally, picking schools that have a diversity in terms of how hard it is to get in and how much it costs to attend, right? So here's all the full range of the Goldilocks criteria. I'm hoping that this was helpful. And I hope that you learned some new stuff, gained a different perspective on the college search process, and you have tools now to be able to navigate this well enough on your own. So there you guys have it. That is my presentation. You have my contact information here. Feel free to reach out to us or follow us in social media.